Hello guys, in the previous video we had looked upon the Python function which we are going to be using in AWS Lambda. In this particular video we are going to be creating the Lambda function for the get operation, and we are going to be testing a couple of things before we go ahead with creating the API gateway for it. Okay, so let's get started. Create function. Over here what we want to do is we want to create our own function. Let's say we'll type test function 1. We want the runtime to be Python, so I'm going to be keeping the runtime as Python 3.7. And over here I'm not defining any permissions because as per convention what happens is when you trigger an AWS Lambda function, it creates a custom role for itself in order to perform all the activities. Most importantly, it creates a role for itself so that it can plot the graphs on AWS CloudWatch, so that we can look at the amount of time it took to execute that particular function, the number of triggers, the number of hits, the number of successes, so on and so forth. So in this particular example, I'm not going to create its own custom role or anything. We are not going to be using any existing roles also. I'll let the AWS Lambda create the basic permission roles and go ahead with. Okay. So I'm clicking create function. Let's just wait for it to get created. After this, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be making the changes in the AWS Python function. Okay, so seems like it has been created. Here is our Python function test func1, which we have created. Here are the permissions, which is like, as I said, it is going to be accessing Amazon CloudWatch, and this is the role name. Here it is, and these are monitoring for CloudWatch. This is where the matrix will be plotted. There will be multiple graphs over here once we get started with it. It is loading right now, so not an issue. Okay, yeah, here it is. So the first graph is invocation, second is duration as in the amount of time it took to execute any Python function, error counts and success rates, throttles, async delivery failures, so on and so forth. Let me go back to configuration and scroll down. I'll find the code. So this is where I'm going to be changing the code now. Now in our particular example over here in Komodo, what I have done is, one second. So what I'm going to do is I'll copy this particular function and I'm going to be pasting it over there. So as I said, Lambda handler is the main function which gets invoked whenever we trigger the AWS Lambda function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type some more code and value add to this particular code to fit to our example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, paste it over here, the employee dictionary, which we are going to be using to access data. Second thing is the get function, and the last but not least, let's say I need to change this particular thing to, I'll change this return function, I'll change this to okay, that is all we need to do. Let me just save this particular thing. Okay, so it is saved. Let me just test it, and here I'm going to be creating a test event wherein I'll mention the profession over here. Okay, so let me create a profession over here. Profession is the key, and the value is, let's say, ENGG. Here it is. Okay, and I'm going to be creating this particular function. Okay, underscores is not allowed in the event name. Okay, so I'm going to be creating this event data. Let me just test it out once. What do we get? Yeah, so the response which we are getting is 28 ENGG and DevOps. Now let's say if I want to change this particular config test and I want to add, let's say what do I add? Doc. Okay, so the profession is doc. Okay, okay, so there are two invocations, so let me just remove this. So we cannot have two keys with the two entries with the same value, that is why. I'm saving this particular thing, and I also need to make some changes over here. Okay, let me just save this, and let's test this once again. Yeah, so what it is getting is, it is giving you this particular function. It is giving you the same particular output because the employee being invoked is still Chirag. Let me just change it to Divya, and then we can expect it to give us the value 24 doc and physiotherapist. Yeah, so that is what we are getting, 24 doc and physiotherapist. Now, since we have executed the function more than a couple of times, let's go ahead and see what is the monitoring status on the AWS CloudWatch. Okay, over here, let's just wait for the data to get loaded. So here it is. We have invoked it once. The duration, the amount of time it took in milliseconds, 1.69. The error count and the rate. Still, there has been no error, so there is no no such thing like it is 0. Since errors is in red, over here we can see errors are 0 and success rate is 100%. Okay, so this is it for creating the function and checking by triggering it. In the next video, what we are going to be doing is, we are going to be creating an API gateway and attaching it to this particular Lambda function and checking it out. Okay.